What's the number one thing people, financial talking heads with bow ties, get wrong about the cloud? What is it? We all said the cloud and this, and what do we get wrong?
So it is the next wave of however you're going to build applications. It's just a very simple way of saying that, that is the Ferrari where everything is going to run later on. Now, the question is, are you investing in that right now, or are you going to wait a little bit? Now, we talked about growth rates. Going into the quarter, they said they will do 14% in Amazon in constant currency, and the next quarter consensus figures were 12%. They did 16 and guided to 11. And that's what really caused a big mess. And, we've been saying for a while that part of the magic of cloud is that your cost structure becomes variable compared to a fixed cost structure as an enterprise. And that is another big driver, growth driver in the long run.
So talk to me a little bit more about that. Are you saying that basically these companies don't have much clarity about the future in the way that they used to? Is that how you'd explain it?
Yeah, it's the Amazon businesses, yes. But that's the question is, we don't have that much clarity over the next 6 months. I have a very good clarity for the next 5 years. I'd have no problem, sticking my neck out and says this business over the next 5 to 6 years will double from where it is today. I'm very confident in that statement because majority of tech spending, over $2 trillion of that, still resides on large companies and their internal data centers. That's where a bulk of the applications are. And that's where the big movement is. And again, you can't run generative AI on older infrastructure.
So this is as an industry group, but what about the specific sectors? What about the specific players? And I think about Microsoft delivering better than expected cloud projections, as well as what we saw from Google. Alphabet also saw profits for the first time from their cloud services. So how much is this an Amazon-specific story versus a broader, even 6-month story?
Amazon has over 40% market share in cloud infrastructure. Nobody else comes close to it. Even Microsoft and Google are far behind. Now, they have been closing the gap over the years. And for Microsoft, they have been closing the gap from their legacy businesses, companies that have been around for a while and that use Microsoft products in their own data centers. They moving their own workloads to the cloud is what's driving their business. But frankly speaking, Amazon has not been losing market share, at least for the past 5-6 years.
When you look to just the next 6 months, the idea of companies maybe not investing as much in their infrastructure, in their tech, how broad does that go? Who else does that affect?
It affects the entire software schema. It entires the entire IT services schema, the entire hardware area. Because what's happening right now is people are saying, I cannot spend at that same rate that I was in the last 5 to 6 years.
I want to look at Cloudflare. I got, Matthew Prince is the one that's made that wonderful firm go. It's something we never talk about. They're getting hammered this morning is well. What is the symbol from the tangential companies around these big names we talk to if I see Cloudflare flare out?
Yeah, you should see somebody like a Snowflake also get hurt today, Datadog, MongoDB, all these companies that really bounced back very strongly in the last just 2 days. So, if Amazon would have reported before Microsoft, things wouldn't have been sounded that badly. I think the expectations really rose very high after Microsoft.
Well, so is it a load the boat time? I mean, you got this 3 and 5 year wisdom here. Are you saying cloud with a carnage this morning is a massive overweight?
So the question is, what is your time horizon? If your time horizon is the next 6 months, like most investment firms, then you got to just hold back. But if you have a 3 to 5 year horizon, you should be looking at it.
Can we finish on a topic we touched on a little bit earlier, and I think we'd love your view on it. How did the guy that decided to sell books online eat IBM's lunch? How did that happen?
Oh, it's one of the most phenomenal stories. I would urge all of you to read Brad Stone's book on it. It is, he basically said, I want a computer with infinite computing power. They said, well, how many data centers do you want? He says, infinity. He says, what does that mean? He says, I need more and more capacity. So we're going to have a very large computer where most of the world will do their computing services. It will be like a utility business. There are no companies that generate their own electricity. Companies should not be running their own data centers too.
What was it about Amazon that led to that moment? What was it about the nature of the business that led to that moment in a way that it didn't happen at companies like IBM in quite the same way?
Because the scale they wanted for their retail business, online business, was not available with the older tools. They needed to do it in-house. Everything needed to talk to each other very rapidly, whether it was the server, the software, the networking equipment. And they said, we will just build it in-house and we will use open source software to create it.
Just amazing, Tom, how this story happened. Just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and Anurag mentioned this briefly, but folks, the definitive book on this is Brad Stone. You don't see him on surveillance. He's a rock star out on the West Coast.
Well, he's still in bed.
He's still, they just,
As he should be.
Gurman, the rest of them, they don't even want to talk to us. It's like we don't exist.
Anurag, does the cloud business exist at IBM? The answer to that is, yeah, kind of. But what's happening with it?
But it's a different business for them. So initially they wanted to compete head on with, the likes of Amazon and Microsoft, but once they figured out it's not going to work, I think the new CEO did a very good job by acquiring Red Hat. So what was going to happen, let's say for a company, I'm just going to make up, let's say PepsiCo. They've been investing in technology for the past 20, 30, 40 years. They have a very massive on-premise footprint. They need to move to the cloud. And their strategy is going to be, I'm going to keep some workloads on the cloud. I'm going to keep some in-house. And that's why Red Hat, along with IBM, has this hybrid cloud strategy where you can have an infrastructure that would work on any cloud on the background, but my applications can run, seamlessly in both places. And that's their business model now.
So these secular tailwinds that we've talked about for a long time, you don't think it's over?
Oh no, not even close to it. I mean, we just saw the biggest next, you could say big growth driver in technology. That's all AI enabled, applications. They run at a speed you can't even think of. You need processing power of the cloud to run that. The current footprint is we are, in my view, less than 20-25% penetrated in the cloud. We have a long way to go.
You sound incredibly bullish. Just to go back to something you said about have a better understanding of the next 5 years than the next 6 months. You're basically saying any cyclical headwinds that affect cloud spend in these companies, ignore them. Is that the message?
Not for the 6 months. I think things could get very tough. And I think, Tom asked me this 2 weeks ago, what's my view on cloud? I said very negative going into, this earnings season. I was proven wrong with Microsoft. But last night, we are, on point that this thing is going to continue to have really massive pressures because companies are not spending on cloud.